The ancient Toyota Corolla rattled to a stop in the rain-slick parking lot of Morgan's grocery, its exhausted engine giving one final cough before silence fell. Zack Nichols gripped the steering wheel with both hands, closed his eyes, and counted to 10. Not today. Please, not today. Daddy. Is the car broken again? 6-year-old Lily peered at him from the backseat, her small face framed by unruly brown curls that matched his own. Just taking a little rest, sweetheart, Zack said, forcing a smile. You know how old Blue gets sometimes. He turned the key again. The engine made a whining noise, but refused to turn over. Perfect. Just perfect. The dashboard clock showed 7:32 p.m. He'd promised Miss Jenkins he'd pick Lily up from after-school care by 6 o'clock and had to pay the late fee again. The groceries he'd scraped together money for sat in plastic bags beside Lily. And now they were stranded in a downpour. Zack stepped out into the rain, popped the hood, and stared at the engine as water soaked through his worn flannel work shirt. 3 years as a mechanic before the shop closed down, and he still couldn't keep his own vehicle running reliably. He jiggled a few connections, knowing it was probably the starter again, a part he couldn't afford to replace. Need some help. The voice came from behind him, causing Zack to bump his head on the hood as he turned. A woman stood there, holding an umbrella over herself. Her dark hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and despite the rain, she wore an elegant cream-colored coat that probably cost more than his monthly rent. Thanks, but I've got it, Zack said automatically, pride making his voice stiffer than intended. The woman raised an eyebrow. Are you sure? Because it looks like you're getting soaked for nothing. Before he could respond, Lily rolled down her window. Hi, our car is broken again. Daddy's really good at fixing things, but sometimes old Blue is stubborn. The woman smiled at Lily, then looked back at Zack. I'm Vanessa, by the way, Vanessa Reeves. She extended her hand. Zack wiped his wet palm on his equally wet jeans before shaking it. Zack Nichols, and that's Lily. Well, Zack Nichols, I have jumper cables in my car. Would you let me help before you both catch pneumonia? There was something disarming about her direct gaze that made his reflexive refusal die on his lips. Yeah, okay, thanks. She gestured to a sleek black Tesla parked a few spaces away. I'll pull up next to you. As she walked away, Lily whispered loudly from the backseat, Daddy, she's pretty. SHH, Lily Bear, Zack said, feeling his cheeks warm despite the cold rain. He watched as Vanessa maneuvered the expensive car beside his rusted Corolla. The contrast couldn't have been more stark. Vanessa emerged with jumper cables and a small toolkit. Pop your hood again. Working together, they connected the cables. When Zack slid back into his seat to try the ignition, Lily was chattering happily to Vanessa through the window. And Daddy works 3 jobs now, but he always reads me a story before bed, even when he's super tired. Zack felt his ears burn. Lily, Miss Reeves doesn't need to hear our whole life story. The engine roared to life on the first try. Relief washed over him as he revved it slightly to make sure it wouldn't die again. Thank you, he said as they disconnected the cables. You saved us from a long, wet walk home. It's nothing, Vanessa said, but she seemed to hesitate. Look, I don't mean to pry, but is your daughter hungry? I was about to grab dinner at the diner across the street. Would you both like to join me? As thanks for brightening my otherwise dreary evening. Zack's first instinct was to decline. He didn't need charity, especially from someone who clearly had money to spare. But then he glanced at Lily, who was looking at him with hopeful eyes. They had groceries, yes, but nothing prepared, and it had already been such a long day. Please, Daddy, I'm starving. Lily pressed her hands together pleadingly. Against his better judgment, Zack nodded. That would be nice. Thank you. 20 minutes later, they sat in a booth at Miller's diner. Lily was coloring on a kid's menu, while Zack tried not to feel completely out of place across from Vanessa, whose casual elegance seemed at odds with the faded vinyl seats. So, 3 jobs? Vanessa asked, her tone conversational rather than pitying. Zack shifted uncomfortably. Warehouse work in the mornings, delivery driving afternoons, and I pick up mechanic jobs when I can. It's temporary until something better comes along. Daddy's super smart, Lily chimed in, not looking up from her coloring. He used to build special cars that go really fast. Really? Vanessa looked genuinely interested. I worked for an auto performance shop, Zack explained. Custom work, mostly, until the owner got sick and had to close down. And your wife? Vanessa asked carefully. It's just us, Zack said, his hand automatically reaching to ruffle Lily's hair. Has been since Lily was 2. Their food arrived, and Zack watched with amusement as Vanessa approached her cheeseburger with the careful consideration of someone not used to eating with her hands. Despite her obvious wealth, there was something refreshingly unpretentious about her. What about you? He asked. What brings you to a grocery store parking lot on a rainy Tuesday night? Something flickered across Vanessa's face, hesitation, perhaps. I was just passing through, actually. I'm taking a break from work to reassess some things. What do you do? Lily asked, mouth full of French fries. Lily, don't talk with food in your mouth, Zack reminded her. Vanessa smiled. I'm in technology, boring grown-up stuff. The conversation flowed surprisingly easily. Vanessa asked Lily about school and listened with genuine interest to her 6-year-old ramblings about kindergarten politics and her best friend Emma's new puppy. By the time they'd finished eating, the rain had stopped, and Lily was yawning. We should get going, Zack said, reaching for his wallet. What do I owe you for dinner? Vanessa waved his hand away. Please, it was my invitation. Consider it thanks for making my evening more interesting than the hotel room service I had planned. You're staying at a hotel? Lily asked. Just for a few days, while I figure some things out, Vanessa replied. As they walked to their cars, Zack felt an unexpected reluctance to say goodbye. There was something about Vanessa that intrigued him, a warmth behind her polished exterior. Thank you again, he said when they reached his Corolla. For the jump and for dinner. It was my pleasure, Vanessa said. Then, after a moment's hesitation, I'm in town for a little while. Perhaps I could call you if I have car trouble, Zack laughed. Somehow I doubt that Tesla gives you much trouble. But he found himself writing his number on a scrap of paper from his pocket. But if it does. Vanessa took the paper with a smile. Good night, Zack. Good night, Lily. Good night, Miss Vanessa, Lily called as Zack helped her into the car. As they drove home to their small apartment, Zack couldn't shake the feeling that something significant had just happened, though he couldn't quite put his finger on what. The next morning, Zack was loading packages onto his delivery van when his phone rang with an unfamiliar number. Hello. Zack, it's Vanessa from last night. His heart did an unexpected little skip. Hey, is everything okay? Actually, I have a proposition for you. Her voice had a businesslike quality now. I mentioned I work in technology, but what I didn't say is that I own a tech company. We're developing some new automotive software, and I need someone with real mechanical expertise to consult on the project. Would you be interested in coming to my hotel this afternoon to discuss it? I'll pay for your time, of course. Zack paused, his suspicion rising. This seemed too convenient. Why me? We just met. Let's just say I've learned to trust my instincts about people. You clearly know cars, and from what Lily said, you've worked on performance vehicles. That's exactly the knowledge base I need. Zack thought about the stack of bills waiting at home and Lily's upcoming school field trip. He wasn't sure how he'd afford. What time were you thinking? They arranged to meet at 4 o'clock, after he finished his delivery route and before he needed to pick up Lily from after-school care. As he hung up, Zack couldn't help wondering what he was getting himself into. The Grand Plaza Hotel was easily the fanciest building Zack had ever entered. He felt distinctly out of place in his clean, but worn jeans and button-down shirt as he approached the reception desk. I'm here to see Vanessa Reeves, he told the concierge, half expecting to be escorted out. Instead, the man nodded respectfully. Of course, sir. Miss Reeves is expecting you in the executive suite, 11th floor. The elevator ride gave Zack time to question his decisions. What did he really know about this woman? Why would a stranger offer him work after a chance meeting in a parking lot? When the doors opened directly into a luxurious suite, his doubts multiplied. The space was larger than his entire apartment, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Vanessa emerged from what appeared to be an improvised office space, wearing a simple black dress that somehow looked both casual and expensive. "Zack, thank you for coming. Can I get you anything to drink?" "No, I'm fine," he said, remaining standing near the elevator. "Look, I appreciate the offer, but I think I need to understand what's really going on here." Vanessa regarded him for a moment, then nodded. "Fair enough, please sit down." They settled on opposite ends of a sleek sectional sofa. Vanessa seemed to be gathering her thoughts. "I wasn't entirely honest with you last night," she began. "I do own a technology company, Reeves Innovations. We specialize in AI and automation software, particularly for the automotive industry." Zack frowned. "I've heard of Reeves Innovations. They're worth billions." "We are," Vanessa confirmed simply. "I founded the company 12 years ago with my ex-husband. He wanted to focus on military applications, but I was more interested in consumer technology. When we divorced 5 years ago, I bought him out. So you're a billionaire, technically, yes." She said it matter-of-factly, as though discussing the weather. Zack stood up, feeling a surge of confusion and something close to anger. "Why did you let me think? Why did you act like?" He broke off, uncertain what he was even asking. "Like a normal person." Vanessa finished with a self-deprecating smile. "Because for those few hours, I got to be just that. Do you know how rare that is for me? So I was, what, some kind of social experiment, a chance to see how the other half lives?" "No," Vanessa stood too, her expression earnest. "Zack, I genuinely need someone with your expertise. We're developing a new diagnostic system for high-performance engines, and our team of engineers is brilliant with software, but lacks practical mechanical knowledge." She walked to a desk and returned with a tablet, pulling up schematics. "This is real. I would never toy with someone's livelihood, especially not a single father's." Zack studied the technical drawings on the screen. Despite his skepticism, his interest was piqued. The system was innovative but had clear flaws that any experienced mechanic would spot. "Your sensor placement won't work with most American muscle cars," he said, pointing to the diagram. "And this connector wouldn't handle the heat distribution in a performance engine." Vanessa's face lit up. "Exactly the kind of insight we need. Will you help us?" "I can pay you as a consultant $200 an hour, 20 hours a week, flexible scheduling around your other jobs and Lily." The amount made Zack's head spin. That was more than he made in a week of warehouse work. Why not hire someone with credentials, a mechanical engineer? "Because they think like engineers, not mechanics. We need someone who's actually gotten their hands dirty, who understands how cars work in the real world, not just on paper." She paused. "And yes, I admit I liked you, both of you. It's not often I meet people who don't immediately see dollar signs when they look at me." Zack ran a hand through his hair, torn between opportunity and pride. "I need to think about this, and I have to pick up Lily in an hour." Vanessa nodded. "Of course, but before you go," she hesitated. "Would you and Lily like to join me for dinner tomorrow night? Not as a potential employer, just as a friend. I could come to your neighborhood this time." Something in her expression, a mixture of hope and vulnerability, made Zack's reservations soften. "Okay, but somewhere normal, no fancy hotels." Vanessa's smile was genuine. "Normal sounds perfect." The next evening, Zack found himself sitting across from Vanessa at Giuseppe's, a small Italian restaurant near his apartment. Lily was happily twirling spaghetti onto her fork, oblivious to the tension between the adults. "So," Zack said after their server had left, "you own a multi-billion-dollar company." "I do." Vanessa sipped her water. "Does that change things?" "How could it not?" He kept his voice low so Lily wouldn't hear. "You could buy this entire block without blinking." I'm scraping together change for Lily's lunch money. Money doesn't define who we are, Zack. Easy for you to say. Vanessa set down her glass. I grew up in a trailer park in Arizona. My mother worked 3 jobs, just like you. I got a scholarship to MIT, built my first program in a dorm room, and worked 80-hour weeks for years to get where I am. So no, it's not easy for me to say, but I believe it's true. Zack studied her face, seeing no deception there. Why are you really here, Vanessa? In this city, in this restaurant with us? She glanced at Lily, then back at him. My company is about to launch an IPO. The board wants me to project a certain image, stable, traditional, family-oriented. My PR team suggested I find a suitable partner before the launch. So you're shopping for a husband? Zack felt a strange mixture of disappointment and amusement. No, Vanessa looked genuinely distressed. That's what I'm running from. I left the corporate offices to get away from that pressure, to figure out what I really want. And then I met you and Lily, and for the first time in years, I just felt normal, like a person, not a portfolio. Miss Vanessa, want to see my drawing? Lily interrupted, holding up a crayon creation from her kids' menu. I'd love to, Vanessa said, her expression softening as she examined the colorful scribbles. Is that a dragon? Uh-huh, it's protecting the princess in the tower. The princess is you. Zack watched as Vanessa engaged with his daughter, asking questions about the dragon's name and why the princess needed protection. There was nothing fake about the warmth in her eyes or the gentle way she spoke to Lily. By the time they finished dinner, Zack's defenses had lowered considerably. As they walked back to his apartment, building Vanessa had insisted on walking rather than taking her car, Lily skipped ahead, stopping to examine interesting pebbles and leaves. I've decided to take the consulting job, Zack said finally. But I want a proper contract, and I don't want any special treatment. Of course, Vanessa agreed. I'll have the paperwork drawn up tomorrow. They walked in companionable silence for a moment before she added, and what about the other part? Other part, the friend part. Is that still on the table? Zack glanced at her, noting the uncertainty in her expression. It humanized her in a way that all her explanations hadn't quite managed. I think we can manage that. Lily would be disappointed if you disappeared. Just Lily. Vanessa asked, a hint of teasing in her voice. Before he could answer, they reached his building, a modest 3-story apartment complex that had seen better days. Zack felt a familiar flush of embarrassment as he compared it to where she was staying. This is us, he said unnecessarily. Daddy, can Miss Vanessa come up and see my room? Lily called, already at the entrance. Zack looked to Vanessa, expecting polite refusal, but she nodded. I'd love to, if that's okay with your dad. The apartment was small, just 2 bedrooms, a bathroom, and a combined living room/kitchen area. Zack had cleaned up that morning, but there was no disguising the worn furniture or the water stain on the ceiling. If Vanessa noticed these things, she gave no indication. Instead, she admired Lily's room with genuine interest, examining the collection of rocks on the windowsill and the hand-painted solar system on the ceiling that Zack had done for her birthday. You did this yourself? She asked, looking up at the planets. Dad's amazing at everything, Lily said matter-of-factly. He's teaching me all the constellations, too. After Lily had shown off all her treasures, Zack tucked her in with a story. When he returned to the living room, Vanessa was standing by the window, looking out at the city lights. She's incredible, Vanessa said without turning. You've done an amazing job with her. She makes it easy. Zack joined her by the window. She's the best thing in my life. Vanessa turned to face him. I should go. Thank you for tonight, for letting me into your world a little. It's not much of a world. It's real, she said simply. That's worth more than you know. At the door, she paused. Would it be okay if I call you tomorrow? About the contract, of course. Of course, Zack echoed, finding himself reluctant to see her leave. Good night, Vanessa. Good night, Zack. Over the next few weeks, Vanessa became a regular fixture in their lives. The consulting work was fascinating, challenging Zack in ways his current jobs didn't, and the extra income allowed him to quit the warehouse position, giving him more time with Lily. Vanessa joined them for dinners, movie nights, and weekend trips to the park. She helped Lily with a science project, teaching her basic coding principles with patience and enthusiasm. To Zack's surprise, she fit seamlessly into their modest routine, never complaining about their budget constraints or suggesting expensive alternatives. One Saturday afternoon, while Lily was at a friend's birthday party, Zack and Vanessa sat on a bench in the city park, sharing a container of food truck tacos. "There's something I need to tell you," Vanessa said, her expression serious. "The IPO is moving forward. I have to go back to corporate headquarters next week." Zack felt a surprising pang of disappointment. "How long will you be gone?" "That depends." She set down her taco, turning to face him directly. "I've been thinking about relocating our R&D division here. We have the infrastructure, and property costs are lower than in Silicon Valley." "That would be a major business decision to make just because you've found a good taco truck," Zack said lightly, trying to mask the hope rising in his chest. Vanessa's laugh was soft. "It's not about the tacos, Zack. It's about," she gestured vaguely, "you, Lily, these weeks have been the happiest I've had in years." Zack set down his food too, suddenly serious. "Vanessa, you know I can't offer you anything like the life you're used to." "That's where you're wrong," she said, her voice steady despite the vulnerability in her eyes. "You've offered me something I've never had: authenticity, a chance to be valued for who I am, not what I own." "I'm still trying to wrap my head around who you are," Zack admitted. "The billionaire CEO and the woman who sat on my couch reading the paper Bag Princess to Lily 3 times in a row seem like different people. They're both me, but I like who I am when I'm with you both." She reached for his hand. "I'm not asking for promises. I just want a chance to see where this could go." Zack looked down at their intertwined fingers. "What about your board? Don't they still want you to find some power broker husband to complete your CEO image? They'll have to accept that I make my own choices." Her smile turned mischievous. "Besides, I own controlling interest. They work for me, not the other way around." That evening, when Zack picked up Lily from her friend's house, he found himself contemplating possibilities he'd long since abandoned. The idea of letting someone new into their carefully balanced lives still terrified him, but the thought of Vanessa leaving terrified him more. "Daddy," Lily said, as he tucked her in that night, "is Miss Vanessa your girlfriend?" Zack nearly dropped the book he was holding. "What makes you ask that, Lily Bear?" "Because you look at her the way Prince Charming looks at Cinderella, and she looks at you the same way. Out of the mouths of babes. Would it bother you if she was?" Lily considered this with the serious contemplation only a 6-year-old could muster. "No. I like her. She doesn't treat me like a baby, and she makes you smile more." "She does, doesn't she?" Zack kissed his daughter's forehead. "Go to sleep, sweetheart. We'll talk more tomorrow." The next morning, Zack called Vanessa. "Can you meet me at Jefferson Park around noon? There's something I want to show you." When she arrived at the small neighborhood park, Zack was waiting on a bench near the playground. Lily was climbing on the jungle gym with a group of other children, her laughter carrying across the open space. "What's this mysterious thing you wanted to show me?" Vanessa asked as she sat beside him. Instead of answering, Zack pointed to a weathered oak tree about 50 yards away. "See that tree? The one with the swing?" Vanessa nodded, curious. "When I was 8 years old, I fell out of that tree and broke my arm. When I was 16, I kissed my first girlfriend underneath it. And 3 years ago, when Lily's mother left us, I sat under that tree all night trying to figure out how I was going to raise a 3-year-old on my own." He turned to face her fully. "What I'm saying is, this park, this neighborhood, it's not just where I live. It's my history. My roots are here." "I understand," Vanessa said quietly. "No, I don't think you do," Zack continued. "Because I'm trying to tell you that if we're going to do this, you and me, I need to know you're not just passing through, that this isn't some temporary escape from your real life." Vanessa's eyes widened with realization. Zack, are you asking if I'm serious about you? I'm asking if you're serious about us, me and Lily, because she's already getting attached to you and I can't let her heart get broken. Just hers? Vanessa asked softly. Zack took a deep breath. No, not just hers. Vanessa reached for his hand, intertwining their fingers. I bought a house yesterday, 3 blocks from here. Nothing extravagant, just a nice 4-bedroom with a yard where Lily can play. I was going to tell you tonight. You bought a house, Zack repeated, stunned. I told you I was thinking of relocating the R&D division. I meant it. Her expression was earnest. I'm not playing house, Zack. I'm building a life, one that I hope will include you and Lily, if you'll let me be part of it. For a moment, Zack couldn't speak past the emotion tightening his throat. When he finally found his voice, he asked, Does this house of yours have a garage? Vanessa looked puzzled by the change of subject. Yes, a 2-car garage. Why? Because I've been thinking about starting my own auto shop. Something small, specializing in performance vehicles. I'd need somewhere to work on the business plan. A slow smile spread across Vanessa's face. I might know someone who could invest in such a venture. She has a good feeling about the owner's expertise. Zack laughed, feeling lighter than he had in years. Lily asked me last night if you were my girlfriend. What did you tell her? I told her we'd talk about it today. He squeezed her hand. So what do you think? Are you willing to be a regular part of our decidedly unbillionaire-like lives? Vanessa leaned forward and kissed him, soft and sure. I think I've never wanted anything more. 6 months later, Zack stood in the newly renovated garage of what was now their home, putting the finishing touches on the business plan for Nichols Performance Automotive. The small house Vanessa had purchased had become a warm, comfortable home filled with both Lily's artwork and Vanessa's tech prototypes. The IPO had gone forward successfully, but Vanessa had indeed relocated the R&D division to their city, allowing her to be home most evenings. She still traveled occasionally for business, but always returned with stories and small gifts for Lily. The financial disparity between them had been an adjustment. Zack had insisted on contributing to their household expenses proportionally to his income, and Vanessa had respected his need for independence. They had settled into a partnership built on mutual respect rather than monetary equality. Daddy, Nessa, Lily's voice called from the house. The cookies are done. Zack smiled at the nickname Lily had adopted for Vanessa. He closed his laptop and headed inside, where he found them in the kitchen, Lily proudly arranging chocolate chip cookies on a cooling rack while Vanessa supervised. They're not burnt this time, Lily announced triumphantly. Excellent progress, Vanessa agreed, catching Zack's eye with a smile. Later that evening, after Lily was asleep, they sat on the back porch swing, watching fireflies blink in the summer darkness. I got a call from that journalist today, Vanessa said. The one doing the feature on women in tech for Business Weekly. What did you tell her? Zack asked, his arm around her shoulders. I told her that the secret to my success is knowing what matters. She leaned against him. That I was lucky enough to have my car break down in front of the right mechanic. Zack laughed. Your Tesla didn't break down. You were driving it when we met. Vanessa's eyes sparkled with mischief. Well, I might have embellished that part a little for the story. It sounds more romantic than I saw a hot guy getting soaked in the rain and decided to help him. Hot guy, huh? Zack grinned, pulling her closer. Though I have to admit, I wasn't expecting the adorable 6-year-old part of the package. We're a matched set. You get both or neither. I'll take both, please, Vanessa said, snuggling into his side. Best investment I ever made. As the stars emerged overhead, Zack reflected on how completely his life had changed in just 6 months. The struggling single dad and the billionaire CEO had found something neither of them expected, a genuine connection that transcended their different worlds. The car that wouldn't start had led him to exactly where he needed to be.